Up close today. I like it.
Has anyone heard about Teresa and how she's doing? Has anyone heard about Teresa and how she's doing?
All I knew from Jeff is he was running home.
That was last night. She was doing better.
Did you hear something different? All I heard is he was going to go home, check on the dog, take a shower, and they were running more tests.
He was back down there. She's talking. She talks to you.
Oh, she talked to you?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So she definitely.
So,
You know, what exactly happened? Does anybody know what exactly happened? I guess we got a minute.
no, I'm turned off. I know she had a fever and just wasn't responding the same. And they're attributing it to the chemo.
Right.
At least initially, that was 2 nights ago. Yeah,
He was lowering the flag. We'll be right back.
okay. Yeah, until those guys showed up. This is an open meeting, so I still have to gavel it in. All right, the gavel's somewhere, so we're gonna call this meeting to order. We're starting our budget workshop. Goes till 3 o'clock, depending on how things go. But because, I'm so sorry, because of what happened to an officer here in Carroll County, we are going to open with prayer today. So will you open us in prayer? Will y'all stand with us, please?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we're thankful for today. Father, we're coming to you today with heavy hearts, Lord. It's been a trying week for law enforcement here in our area. Lord, I pray that law enforcement here in Carroll and Paulding and Douglas surrounding areas, Father, I pray that our professionalism never wavers. I pray that our integrity is never questioned. Father, I pray that we work for your honor and your glory. I pray right now for Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Father, that you'll be with them. I pray that you just put a hedge of protection around them in the, the scene that they're working. Father, I pray for peace and comfort to all their deputies and the families. Father, I pray that you help the deputy that's currently being treated at local hospitals. Father, I pray that you heal him and help him to be okay. Father, I lift up his family once again.
Yes.
You'll just give them peace and knowing that he was out there doing the right thing, Father. And I pray that we acknowledge your sovereignty. We acknowledge that you are in control. We acknowledge that you are God and we are not, and that we don't understand things that happen, but you are in control, and that we'll continue to honor and serve you in this profession, Father. But I pray that you touch people's hearts, because that's what we need in this country, Father. We need you to change lives. We need you to work on hearts so that we can love our neighbors and take up our cross daily so we can glorify you with our lives, Father. We just pray your blessings on this meeting, our city, our county, and our country, Father, and that you'll just be with us and help us to glorify you in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think.
So anyway, just briefly, it was extremely rare decades ago, extremely rare to have law enforcement lost in something like an ambush. Those type of things were extremely rare. Happened in our hometown maybe one time in 40 years, which was shocking to all of us. But this has become more common probably since about 2015. I believe an ambush is why we lost the officer in Paulding County. And about 2015, we lost 5 officers in Texas on one day, and it just kind of reverberated out there. We did not have people even marching in the streets and calling for the attack of law enforcement and going, on social media. So it's a precarious time, and so as we continue, hopefully, those of us who trust in God and the Lord, that we continue to pray for our law enforcement, and specifically also in Chicago, there was violence last night, that they would be protected there too, because they have a lot of law enforcement there, along with our local people. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and begin with the millage rate hearing. Thank you. I do have it. It's just getting it all out. Thank you. So we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Finance.
Okay, good morning. I guess before the public hearing, this is a short presentation regarding the millage rate, the digest, and how it impacts the city of Villa Rica. Just to remind everybody, the property tax process and who's responsible for what. The county function is the tax assessors, falls under the county. They assess property, they notify taxpayers of the value changes, they review all appeals, and they ensure the appeal process proceeds properly. The municipalities, which include the city, the county, and the school board, we establish an annual budget, and we also levy the millage rate to fund that budget. Then it goes to the tax commissioner's office, which is again a county function. Once all the millage rate all the entities have adopted the millage rate, everything goes to the tax commissioner's office, and they bill, collect, and distribute back to us the tax proceeds. What's included in the digest? That includes your real property, your personal property, your motor vehicles, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. All of those categories make up what we call your gross digest. Then there's various exemptions out there, so you subtract that from your gross digest to come up with your net digest. So as far as Villa Rica, what makeup of the digest for the 2024, the different categories? Our gross digest is at $1.3 billion, with 52.45% being residential, 25.99% being industrial, 19.84% being commercial, and then we have a small sliver of 1.72% that's made up of smaller categories, which is utilities, motor vehicles, agriculture, conservation, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. This is a chart reflecting the digest from 2024 versus 2023. for each category. You can see our commercial increased by 10.89% from 235 million to 261. Our industrial actually decreased from 350 million to 341, which is a 2.44% decrease. Our residential increased 608,000 to 690,000, which was 13.43% increase. The other small category had a small adjustment of 1.89 decrease. So our gross digest grew from 1.2 billion to 1.3 billion, which is an 8% increase. However, our exemptions actually decreased, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later of what was the main reason that decreased. But our exemptions decreased 51%, went from 195 million to 95 million. So again, our net digest is 1 billion, 1.2 billion compared to a little over a billion last year. As you know, Villarica is split between two counties, Douglas and Carroll. So this is just a chart showing how much of each of those categories belongs in or is in Douglas versus Carroll. Our commercial, our 2024 value is 261 million. 23% of that is in Carroll, 23% is in Douglas, 77% is in Carroll. Our industrial, 40% is in Douglas and 60% is in Carroll. Our residential is pretty much split 50-50. And in the other category is 21% Douglas, 79% Carroll. So at the end of the day, our net digest again is 1.2 billion, with 44% of it being in Douglas County and 56% being in Carroll County. When you hear me talk about the digest or the growth in the digest, there's actually two types of growth. There's the reassessment inflationary growth, and then there's new growth or other changes to the digest. So we'll kind of dive into what each of these mean and how they impact the decision on the millage rate. The reassessment or inflationary growth, again, that's exactly what it is. It's just due to the reassessment of properties. When all the taxpayers get their reassessment notices from the county's tax assessor's office, that is the type of growth that happens in the digest that is due to that reassessment or the inflationary growth in the digest. A very basic example is, say last year your fair market value was $200,000. You get your reassessment notice this year, it's $210,000, so you had a $10,000 increase in your fair market value, which was a 5% increase. Then the other type of growth in the digest is new growth, new or improved property. So you take those two types of growth, and then that makes up the total growth or the total changes in your digest from one year to the next.
Would you give an example of new and improved property?
Yeah, new would be new houses, new buildings, new commercial buildings, or improved property would be you added a pool or you added a storage building. Those would be examples of the new or improved property. So Villarica's digest growth, now that we have the two different categories, how did we fare in these? So in 2023, the value of a mill was just over $1 million. For 2024, the value of a mill is $1.2 million. And as far as the third column over that says reassessment of existing real property, this is that inflationary growth, the reassessment growth we had just spoke about. We had experienced 4.79% in reassessment growth, which for Villarica calculates to about $285,000 in tax revenue. The other changes to the taxable digest, which is the new or improved property or any other changes to the digest that are not associated to the reassessment, we actually had 14.63% of new growth, which generates $870,000 in tax revenue. So you can see down, does this work? Yeah. Okay. You can see the net digest from 2023 to 2024. We had a 19.42% increase in the digest, with 4.79 being reassessment growth and 14.63 being new growth. Villarica's digest growth by county. Again, this just is showing you the difference between each county. For reassessment growth in Villarica, for Douglas County, we experienced 7.02%. Carroll County, 3.43%. So there again is that 4.79% in reassessment growth in total for Villarica. New growth or other changes for Douglas County, 30.06%. And we'll talk about that. That is very odd or very, it's not common. We'll talk about what made that be so high. In Carroll County, it was 5.16. So the total new growth for Villarica is 14.63%.
Say again, which one are we going to talk about that's so high?
The 30.06, the one with the red asterisk.
Okay, because I also had a question just real quick. Douglas County's inflationary rate, was more than double Villarica. You think closer to the metro area?
Yeah.
I guess we're all considered,
It has
that side of the
some to
city,
do with that,
Douglas
but
County?
also last year it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Carroll County had higher inflationary growth and Douglas County had the lower inflationary growth.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about this 30.06% in the Douglas category under new and other. When I received the digest, I knew that this was something that was not common and needed to be questioned, one, to make sure it was correct, and two, if it was correct, why and how did this happen? What has happened here is Southwire did not file a Freeport exemption in 2024, okay? This impacted the tax digest and resulted in approximately $500,000 additional revenue for the city of Villarica. I reached out to the tax commissioner's office, who also reached out to the chief appraiser and also the appraiser that actually does personal property to make sure, was something lost in the mail, what's going on, because we did not want to anticipate this revenue if we knew that an appeal could be filed and that would be a correction in the digest. However, for reporting purposes, once the tax commissioner gives us the digest numbers, we have to go with those numbers. We cannot adjust those numbers for anything that we think may be appealed. Again, we reached out to the county. They assured us that no appeal had been filed, or no Freeport exemption had been filed, and that the deadline had passed, and that the gentleman who actually handles the personal property side actually reached out to Southwire via phone, email, actually went there to try to get somebody to talk about this Freeport exemption and was not successful in finding anybody. He kept getting transferred to different places. However, this is, again, that $500,000 in additional revenue that we may or may not receive. We did not include this. We did not feel comfortable enough in including this in our budget projections. So what that means is if we get it, we didn't budget for it, it will go to fund balance. And that way we can, if we run short next year, say on the TAD debt service payment, we could apply that to that. If we don't get it, then that's okay too, because we didn't budget for it to begin with.
Real quick, and I know we asked this question in our individual groups, but when is the deadline that we would know whether that appeal,
Technically,
they get a favorable answer? Or
technically, the deadline has already passed, but the response we got from the county was if Southwire can prove that they mailed it and it got lost in the mail, and we have been having mail issues the past several months, then that could be a possibility. But as far as checking the box of meeting the deadline has already passed. I have reached out to the finance manager in the tax commissioner's office and told her that once everything's said and done and they process bills and everything, that to please let me know one way or the other, one, if it's paid, or two, if they appeal and she has to make an adjustment to the digest, to please let me know, just so that we'll know how this impacted our budget or our bottom line.
so it could be maybe the first of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, state law requires the calculation of a rollback millage rate to offset the inflationary increases to the digest. So remember, you have inflationary increase to the digest, and then you have new growth in the digest. What state law requires is the portion that is for inflationary growth or reassessment growth, you have to calculate a rollback millage rate. And how you do that is you take the inflationary growth and you divide it by the current year's net digest. You multiply that by your prior year millage, which for us was 5.822, and that way you come up with your millage rollback equivalent, which for us for this year was 0.234. So our 2023 millage was 5.822. Your rollback calculation is 0.234. So the 2024 rollback millage is 5.588. And why that's important is even if we choose, in which we are proposing and have advertised, to maintain the current millage rate at 5.822, it is still considered a tax increase based on state law, even though you're maintaining the same millage rate as the prior year because of this rollback calculation. So again, after speaking with our city manager and deputy city manager, looking at our budget needs, there's always a lot more needs than there are funds. We are recommending, and we have advertised to maintain the same millage rate as 2023, which is 5.822 mills versus the 5.588 mills. This is additional $285,000 in additional revenue. Why? Usually when we're making the recommendation, it's mainly because of the current budget. We have a lot of needs, we have a lot of requests, we have a lot of capital projects that we want to accomplish. But specifically for Villa Rica, there's another more important need for maintaining the millage rate. It's because of the tax allocation district, the fund. We have a debt repayment was based on a 6.25 millage rate. Our year-to-date collections, meaning that it started last year, we have about $45,000 in the bank account. We will generate about $85,000 from the city of Villa Rica, but another $40,000 from other entities. But what's important here is that in fiscal year 2026, not this upcoming year, but our next fiscal year, we will have a debt service payment that is due just under $2 million. The debt service is supposed to be paid from the tax proceeds that you collect within the tax allocation district. Due to several factors, one being, or the main one being, the developments are not occurring as fast as what was projected. Therefore, the value of those developments are not going to be hitting the digest as of January 1, when they were originally projected to hit at the value that they were projected to hit, as well as the millage rate already being less than what was originally projected. Just in the city of Villa Rica side, it was projected to stay or to be maintained at 6.25. So we're now also dealing with a lower millage rate. We are going to come up short with our debt service payment. That debt service payment, if you do not have the proceeds from the tax revenue, then you have to pull from the general fund to pay that debt service. So we're trying to, there's one thing we can control and one thing we cannot control. One thing that we can control is the millage rate and how far back it gets rolled back from the original estimate. The thing we cannot control is the timing of the developments and those values of those developments when they hit the digest. So that is the main reason that we are asking or proposing or making the recommendation to maintain the same millage rate as last year. When I got the go-ahead from the city manager to go ahead and set the advertisements, they've already been in the paper. They've already been advertised. The one on the left is the one that has to meet specific requirements from the state. Not only does it have to be worded the exact same way that they require, it has to be in the section of the paper that is not in the legal section, and it also has to be 30 inches square. So this ad was in the paper in both Times Georgian and Sentinel. But because we are limited in the ads and what we can say or how we would like to explain things, our deputy city manager had experience with the other city that she had worked with, that they also included another ad with the state required ad, which is to the right. And it is explaining to citizens that, yes, while we are having to advertise a notice of property tax increase, that we are tentatively adopting or recommending the adoption of a millage rate equal to last year's millage rate. So that we're saying that the millage rate is not being increased, that if there are increases in the taxes is due to the reassessment of properties, not because the millage rate increased. This is another ad that is required to go in the paper. It's the current 2024 tax digest and 5-year history of levy. It's exactly what it is. It states when we would be adopting the millage rate, but it gives you the 5-year history from 2019 to 2023 of how each of the digest categories performed, and then it gives the current digest of 2024. But if you look at the very bottom, this is one thing that gets very confusing with this ad, and again, we cannot really add any more to this ad, but the last line item, or the last line that says net taxes percentage increase, is 19.42%. That is not the tax increase that we are advertising. That 19.42% is actually the amount of revenue that we're generating from both reassessment. Remember, that was $285,000 plus new growth, which is $870,000. $870,000. Remember, $500,000 of that is something that we're not quite sure if we're going to actually get or not. We didn't budget for it, so we're good. But part of that $870,000 is due to that exemption from Southwire. Another important reminder, last year the state offered what they call the Homestead Tax Relief Grant, the HTRG. It was actually stated last year that it was a one-time grant for homestead taxpayers. We were all hoping that if the state continued to perform well, then maybe the governor would extend it another year, but it has expired. So again, because that was a one-time property tax relief grant last year, you will see that that HTRG credit on your tax bill is going to go away. So for this is an example of a property that had the HTRG credit last year, and you can see they had a savings of $530.88. And they were given the credit. The state then turned around and paid each of the municipalities the total amount of the HTRG grant. So when people pay their property taxes, of course they pay the tax commissioner, but do they really know where their property taxes are going? This is showing you for each respective county, Carroll and Douglas, where the property taxes are going when they pay their property tax bill. And like normal jurisdictions, the majority of your tax bill, 52 to 58% for Douglas and Carroll, go to the Board of Education. 20% in Carroll County goes to Villa Rica, and 15% goes from Douglas County goes to Villa Rica, with the remainder going to county government. Again, the millage rate schedule is a tight schedule due to state requirements. There are 3 public hearings that are required, this being one of them. Then we have another one tonight at 6 p.m. And then August the 27th, which is a week from today, at 6 p.m. will be our third and final public hearing. After that public hearing is closed, then we would ask for the council, mayor and council, for the adoption of the millage rate. Are there any questions?
Kind
Council?
I'm sorry, yes. So when we were in our individual meetings, I think you did an analysis of the TAD revenue. Do you have all that information with you? Could you go over that as well?
Sure. I don't have it in a PowerPoint, but yeah, I can
Okay.
go ahead and,
If you could, off the cuff, I guess, if you, well, I was more or less, because what I remember was the number 19 is in my head. 19, I guess was 19 million, 19,000, I cannot remember. Was basically the value of the TAD properties, and I think you showed the shortfall in the development. I think you had some numbers on that. Do
okay.
you-
Let me see. Yeah, sure.
Don't have the exact numbers in front of us, but I believe for the current year, the 2024 digest, the projection was originally about 30 million, and I believe it was just shy of 15 million.
Okay.
And then subsequent to that, it jumped to, I believe, was it 60 or
61.
90? 61 million, and then
Okay.
90, and then from there.
Okay.
But we can get that information to you.
Okay. Do we have basically a listing of every TAD parcel and the status of the developments on each one of them?
I have the TAD, yes, I have the parcels, but I don't have the status of
Okay.
those, of where they're at
Okay.
in the development stage.
We can work on that and have that information for
Okay.
you. We will try to get that before tonight's public hearing, but we will definitely have it before the third and final public hearing for you.
Okay, because what the comments were made during our discussions were that the part of the reasons of any potential delay was because of this moratorium. And I just wanted to see where each one was in relation to where the moratorium is at. So that's kind of the point of all that. Because, for example, if you go out on the Villa Rica Parkway, and I just looked at the Carroll tax, the graded parcel on the right, if you're coming from Cleghorn, Anderson, up towards up behind the Publix, essentially, was valued at over $1 million. Yet the wooded parcel on the opposite side, which I recall being some proposed for development there too, was valued at maybe 200,000 to 600,000. So I was just trying to get a feel for, and then also I'm not even sure where. I didn't even look to see where the inline parcels were at. So that's kind of what I would like to see, an analysis done of where these parcels are at in their development process, and then maybe we can get a valuation of each parcel from there. Because I guess I have a concern at some level, and it's not the city's thing, but why is the parcel across the street valued at $200-something thousand when the one across the street is $1 million? I understand it's graded, but I would just like to get an understanding of that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that request. And I will say it'll most likely be an approximation.
Sure.
As early as last week, still having conversations with the developers in the area and understanding the challenges that they're having with interest rates and lending and moving forward on some of their progress as well. But we will definitely work on that.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question because I had something related to the TAD as well. I noticed somebody's at least standing around early in the morning down there talking on that property. It seemed like forever since we had heard anything from the developers that wanted to do the townhouses and then wanted to change it to, shorter driveways, single car garage, all that discussion, and then it's like nothing. I don't know, did they fall off the map? It's just taking a long time with the economic conditions. So it relates to what you're asking about is, where are they? I'm also thinking about the TAD. Now, who knows the answer to this question? Because I don't recall exactly when it happened. There was at one time when we first approved the TAD, we all learned about it. I went to an extra seminar with a guy down in Carrollton that involved a number of people from the county, learn about how they work. And at one time, it was going to not have the taxpayers on the hook at all. Then it changed. What was that change? Do you recall when that happened? Because that's what we're talking about right here, in that if those bond payments aren't made, taxpayers are on the hook. And I'm just wondering, down the road, with us touting how wonderful TADs can be, and they can be. I mean, they can be wonderful. I've seen them work other places, redevelop areas in Atlanta, and then, you've got, what is it, the Gulch? I think it was the Gulch. There was this vacant parking lot, nothing. And they developed it, they're bringing in the taxpayer dollars. It's now just not a piece of blight. But I'm wondering how this is going to play out with citizens going, well, are we going to be on the hook or not when the development doesn't come in, which will, going to tie into another question, and this probably can't be answered here. It's probably going to be a TAD specialist. How often are TADs done where there's nothing in the contract? Is it normal not to have anything in the contract as to when that development will happen, or what has to be required in timing for it to be done? I understand the economic factors and hardship, but we're looking up there at a lot of vacant lots that were expected to be full. So I can't be the only one that's wondering, is it normal to have that in a contract with a TAD? Because we are the first ones out here that did a TAD. It was a foreign entity, so I knew we were going to have to pave the ground like pioneers, right? And people really look at it skeptically, which is okay. It's brand new. What are you doing? We all had to learn about it along with the different counties and government, school board, county government, how that was going to play out because we needed their agreement. Now, that may sound a little convoluted, but it came down to, is it common for the contracts to be like that, where we don't have any idea whether what we're expecting to come is going to come? Is that common in a TAD? And what was my other question? Is at least the apartments, I see a finger going up there, so you got part of it, hand going up. With those apartments, what's going on to your question?
Go ahead.
Whoever's got it, it doesn't matter to me.
Oh, sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, come on up.
I
Let
was
her
just gonna
start.
say,
You be
I don't want to
ready.
speak to when it changed. But what I would like to speak to is the fact that Jennifer's doing a really good job in her evaluation, not only of where we thought we were going to be, but also where we're going, so that we can have a more accurate outlook, and so that mayor and council has the information they need in advance to make the decisions, following up with what Councilman Momtan asked for. That's going to be very good information. It's going to be fluid information, unfortunately, because as economics change, as interest rates change, as regulations change, it's not necessarily a set in stone factor, both on what that final end product will be valued at and when it comes on the digest as well. But it's definitely something that we have on the tip of our pulse. We're keeping an eye on it, and we will continue to evaluate it and make that information available to you.
Okay, so let's ignore, hang on, believe me, I want to hear from you. Let's ignore when it happened. What was the dynamics that changed and that made us go from taxpayers on the hook to taxpayers are on the hook? It had to do something to do with when they went back out at the timing. Remember, it took a lot longer for us to get all the agreements done. By then, the economic conditions had changed. Does anybody know the answer to why it went from taxpayers aren't on the hook to they're on the hook if the development and stuff doesn't come through like expected?
I can answer that from a general perspective. Now, specific to this TAD and the negotiations, I'm going to have to defer to legal on that. But usually, when it's backed by general obligation of the general fund, you get a lower interest rate as well. So it's a more secured bond, and you borrow at a lower rate. I think that probably played a little bit of a factor in it, but I'm not sure if that was the entire reason either.
That's the reason we guarantee with our general fund that the payment of any debt, including the bond.
But
So ultimately,
initially, that's not what we were told.
Well, I think, I don't know what you were told or when or that you're referring to right now. I think it was projected that the first year, maybe the first couple years, the TAD would not generate enough for the payment. So we would be on the have to pay that out of our general fund, but hopefully, as the area is developed, then that will create enough within the TAD to pay the bond payment.
Okay.
And Mayor, I'm sorry, I know we want to hear from Tracy, but that actually was going to be my next question, because my recollection was that we were going to have to pay, we were going to have to be, it was going to be under, there was going to be a shortfall for the first couple of years. So my question is then, for staff, is what is the amount that we were anticipating to be the shortfall versus where we are at now, or what we're now projecting to be the shortfall? Because it sounds really scary to say we're going to have a shortfall, but when you think about it, well, we already knew that we were going to have a shortfall. So what's the actual difference between the amount we all anticipated a year or two ago versus what we're anticipating now?
From what I
Let me
can,
add on to that. Not that necessarily we're going to, is it right? Not necessarily that we expected a shortfall, but that we were going to have to front the money that we thought we then would
Well, I
pay
mean,
ourselves back for?
From my perspective, I always, my understanding was always that there were the first couple of years, the TAD was not going to, quote, pay for itself, and that it was going to take a couple of
Because
years
that's
for it to pay for itself. So I guess to hear the news that it's not going to pay for itself in the first year sounds alarming to folks who may not have realized that, but we knew that. So my question is, what's the, what are the numbers at? I mean, because I think you said the payment was $1.9 million. Well, if we were anticipating the payment to be 1.7 million and it's actually 1.9, then that's only $200,000 difference. That's less alarming sounding than we got to pay $1.9 million, those kind of things. That's the kind of analysis I would like to hear at some point, please.
going through prior estimates that were done with, the prior city manager and the consultants he was working with, from the spreadsheets that I can find, it looked like there was an estimate of a loss of about $750,000 for the first year.
Okay.
Or for the first, we are making payments right now. It's just
Right.
capitalized interest. But the first, what I call the real payment that's coming from the property tax proceeds, from what I remember from the spreadsheets, it looked like there was about a $750,000 shortage. For the first
fiscal-
year.
For the
Mhm.
January 1st, 2026 payment.
Correct.
Essentially.
Correct.
Okay.
So, essentially, this is similar to a business. So with a business, the first 5 years you project to not make any money, hopefully break even, but you also anticipate losing money. So to Councilman Monahan's point, do we have, where have we prepared for this? And obviously, this isn't going to be something that's only this year where there will be a shortage. There will be a shortage for the next couple of years, just because that's how business works. And so where are we on planning for that? Do we have some sort of spreadsheet on where those payments are, where that money's projected to come from, and any shortage where that's going to go, or come from, sorry?
Let me do this. Let Tracy talk. Let me see if I can get my spreadsheet to them so they can pull it up, and then we can talk about how we kind of estimated each year what that shortage would be, like what you were asking. Let me see if I can go ahead and get that pulled up on the,
Okay.
if that's okay.
No, thank you. I know I just
No,
said a whole
no,
lot to
that's
get to
fine.
the point. I don't know if I even,
You don't have all that at your fingertips, right, all the time. Thank you, Tracy. Mr. Jarvis.
Updates on some of the projects in the TAD.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So, the Flournoy, Villa Rica Parcel B, which is the townhomes, we got their resubmittal addressing comments on their civils this morning. So
Okay.
they're close to go ahead and getting their LDP.
And that's the parcel that's right behind the Publix there?
Yes.
Okay, that's been graded? Okay.
And then another part of the TAD, which is the senior living up at Punkintown and 61
Okay.
our pit. They're real close with their civils, on submitting their civils. I think the biggest holdup on that is, the leg of the road that goes through there getting signed off with the city, where they can finalize all of their civils in that. And then you've got inline communities, which is part of the TAD that Fortune Parkway are building the road through the swamp. So we haven't got any civils yet. They're building the road through there, but they've invested heavily in it, so they're not going anywhere. But most of these projects in the TAD are progressing. And Nick, you've got the spreadsheet here. If you can just kind of give the rest of where we're at on the TAD, but we're in the civil process on most of these. So we're going to see some stuff going vertical probably by, I would say, the springtime. So we'll start adding some stuff to digest next year.
Okay.
So that's the residential, just real quick. Any word on commercial in the Fuquay area?
The commercial part, besides the multifamily, is about built out in that development. I mean, there's a few more things that are.
Yeah, there's like
I mean, we're waiting on Chick-fil-A is one of them, and Nick can update you on where all them are in the process.
Okay.
But and then part of the RPIT is commercial also, which will be out on the 61 close to the roundabout. So there'll be quite a bit of commercial digest coming in off of that, and they're self-funded. Money, they don't have to borrow money from the bank, so they're going through with these. And most of these big guys are there. So,
okay.
and I'll let Nick kind of get the rest of that.
Yeah, so me and Mr. Scott Cowart, we met for about an hour yesterday and kind of updated our list and school impact, for residential and commercial. I kind of briefed him on everything. So what I can do, for sake of time, is I can email you both of these lists, the residential one and the commercial one. It's in a spreadsheet. It's very easy to read, and it also has a status. So I can run through all of them and tell you where we're at, but I could also just email it to you, and
Are y'all good with that? I'm good with emailing
Yeah,
it.
email it, and then maybe everybody can get together and we can do like a joint, like a master document, that way we can see a lot of cross-references between the financial side and the development side.
Okay, that'll be great.
After we get everybody's heads together. I mean, at least that's my perspective, Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
No, that would be more comprehensive, and the more comprehensive, the better for me to make sense of all of it. The RPIT, that node isn't part of our agreement with the county and the school board, correct?
That's correct, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the 45 acres that was rezoned from agricultural, the commercial, the senior living. We made some agreement, but it's not part
That's
of
right.
the TAD.
That's right. I forgot about that, you're right.
Only reason I didn't forget is because that is Ward 3. And we gave away stuff. We made agreements and concessions in an area that was not part of the TAD, which I thought was really odd.
So I think.
Well,
So-
they wanted it to be.
It was the.
Or we wanted it to be.
There were three, okay, I'm just working off memory, so I may be wrong, but, so the three nodes of the TAD were the Fuqua development, the inline development were Fortune Parkway, and then was the apartments back behind Olive Tree.
That's all
If
I
I'm
think
remembering
of.
correctly, those are the three nodes. Oh, and then I guess Arbor Valley technically was one, too?
Arbor Valley's right in the middle of it.
Okay.
They're in node 1. Gordon Street, apartments behind Olive Tree, that's node 4.
That's node 4, so there's 4 nodes.
And they're working on their civils, so
They are.
we're seeing
It's under civil
progress
review.
on that also.
Okay.
I believe that's going to come to pass.
A lot of these bigger developments are coming to fruition.
I'm trying to
Okay.
remember the different nodes because
So
the
Arbor Valley-
RPIT area wasn't.
Right.
Arbor Valley.
was node 1. You said
Arbor-
Gordon Street apartments behind Olive Tree was node 4.
Node 4.
And then Fuqua inline were node 3 or 2, or whichever ones.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get you all this information.
Thank you.
One other quick comment, just while you're there. We based it, speaking of starting a business and maybe expecting a loss initially, which is, can be common, we based it on the 6.25. Like when you buy a house, I just, not that, it had to be based on something, I realize that. But it's always good to also prepare for the worst-case scenario. And I don't think that's what we're seeing, but economic conditions have changed. Interest rates have gone up. There's developers that aren't willing to put their neck out there right now. You know, but, okay.
Let's, I'll try to go over this really quick, but I think this will answer some of y'all's questions. Let's look at this step by step. So you can see that we issued bonds almost 21 million in September of 2023. Okay, we had to pay issuance costs of 322,000, so that left 20.6 million. Again, we're making capitalized interest, meaning that when we borrowed the bonds, we borrowed enough so that we could make capitalized interest payments through July of 2025. So that's when I'm talking about our first real debt service payment in January of 2026. That is when it kicks in for our tax revenues to supposedly cover the debt service payments. So you can see that you have capitalized interest 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that leaves us just over $19 million for the actual TAD projects. All right, we have development agreements with Fuquay for the Villa Rica Parkway, about $7.5 million, so that leaves $11.4 million. Fortune Parkway / Inline, we have a development agreement with Inline, $4 million, so that leaves $7.4 million remaining. For Villa Rica's portion, above and beyond what Fuquay and Inline are doing to those Fortune Parkway and Villa Rica Parkway, we, Villa Rica, have $7.4 million to finish or do our part of both of those parkways. Okay? So that's the budget. That's us receiving the money, it getting dispersed, and us having what do we have left to spend so that we can complete or do what we need to do on Villa Rica Parkway and Fortune Parkway. Okay?
Okay, now the developer is doing Fortune. All of it?
Only a portion.
That's, okay,
Same
just
for
like
Villa Rica.
the Parkway, the Villa
Correct.
Rica Parkway. So, in the numbers, did we kind of estimate what we thought it was going to cost for our part ahead of time?
That is my assumption.
And the reason I'm asking is because the parkway we're building, that we're saying we're going to build, is different from the original design. Not as wide, not as, the sidewalks, paths, all that. We're not doing all that, and we're keeping it narrow. I was wondering if that helped us.
Mayor, my recollection, though, is that this number is, this 7.5 million or whatever, is because it is a smaller design, because we could not get kind of the buy-in from the schools or the county as much as we wanted to. We wanted their full mill, and now, but because we wanted less of that, we had to
Scale it down.
scale it down. That's my recollection. So I think that's already baked into this, but that's just my memory.
So this number is based on a smaller road? So we would have never been able to afford the other road to begin with.
Yeah, so in my opinion, in my recollection, that road
Plus we
that
don't
we saw,
need it.
that we talked about the other day at the retreat, that 80-foot, I don't think that was, I don't have any information that was what we were going to be proposing 3 or 4 months ago.
I think the
I
center,
don't know.
the divided, where there was a big planted island down the middle, was taken out a long time ago.
Right, yeah, that's,
The sidewalks and the sidewalk on one side, the cart path on one side, and a multi-use path on the other side should be included in this number.
But the original plan, and I'm not sure exactly, I guess I'm trying to understand what this number includes, because the original plan was the 2 roads,
Yeah, not,
the medium, golf cart path on each side, and sidewalk on each side. So I don't know when it changed to removing the median and only having golf cart and sidewalk. But what I'm asking is what this number actually includes.
yeah, I think that That should include what was in the TAD, which was a multi-use path on one side, a golf cart path on the other.
So if that plan has changed, then that number may come
That
down.
number may change.
So we could have never afforded the other original plan.
I don't, that's
to
what I'm
begin
thinking. I think that plan that we, kind of that street level detail that we circulated on Friday, I think that was nixed years ago. That's my understanding.
With the median, it's
Right.
been gone a long time.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember about the paths and how.
Paths were not taken out.
That part I don't remember either. There, so.
Okay.
That's not how I recall it, but I may have missed exactly what was included. Because this plan changed so many times. It was really hard for me to keep up. I can only imagine how difficult it was for citizens to keep up with it.
Sure.
To go back to Councilman Montahan's question regarding actual or what were our new estimates versus the original estimate. If you'll look at the top box, that is what has actually occurred in 23 and 24, and now what we're going to be estimating for 25, 6, and 7, just kind of a 5-year outlook. The bottom box is the original estimate. Okay, so if we look at 2023, you can see $4.5 million is what was the fair market value, the actual fair market value. We estimated, we brought in $46,000. Okay, what was estimated was $10,000 in property tax. So that year, actually good. We brought in $36,000 more than what was originally estimated. For 2024, where we are today, the digest is reflecting 14.6 million fair market value. We're going to bring in about 152,000 in revenue. The original estimate for 24 was 39.4 for fair market value, and bring in about $500,000, or a little under $500,000.
So, and I think that 14 is where I was getting my 19. My brain does that weird thing with numbers sometimes when they look similar but they're not the same. So if I take that $14,681,056, if I go on the tax assessor's website and I click every single parcel and I add all those numbers up, that's what I'm getting. Okay.
And I have a spreadsheet that has all the parcels. I would just need to get with the tax commissioner or tax assessor's office to dump the new data to show that the 14.6.
Okay.
And then we can, like you said, work, and it would be very fluid, but that would be something that we could work in every year and say, okay, what has happened with each of these parcels?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So for 25, 26, 27, I'll be honest, what we did for 25 is we just said, hey, let's take the 2024 number that was originally estimated, and let's put it in 2025. Okay. Then, based upon some knowledge that, we have, or that the city manager and deputy city manager has on how the current developments are coming along, we decided, okay, we're going to do 61 million in 26 and 92 million in 27. But look at the differences, and that's what you're going to see. In 2025, we're estimating 39.4 million. The original estimate was 99.4 million. That's a $60 million difference, and that's about $640,000 difference in tax revenue. In 2026, 61 million is what we're estimating. The original estimate was almost 176 million. That's a $115 million difference. So that's $1.2 million short in tax revenue. In 2027, 92 million is what we're estimating. The original estimate was 276. So you're looking at $1.9 million shortage. And then the small boxes to the right is what we're talking about when we're talking about the millage rate. The original estimate for the millage rate was that Villa Rica would maintain the 6.25. The counties was 6.671, and I think I've heard that they're rolling back. So again, that's going to impact us as well on the revenue that we generate from the TAD. The schools millage rate was capped per their intergovernmental agreement, IGA, to 13.5 mills. Their millage is around 17, but they capped how much they would contribute to the TAD. So the original estimate was a millage being levied at 26.421, and as it stands right now, and really it's actually lower because the county, I think, is proposing to roll back theirs, but at the time of doing the spreadsheet, we're at 25.993. So that's where we have two things going against us, or three things: the value of the development, the timing of the development, and the millage rate that's applied to those developments.
So I'll still be following up, not with y'all, but I'm gonna go find the TAD expert and find out when they plan a development, if it's normal to have some sort of contract with the expectation that there'll be a deadline on creating what they are proposing they're going to create there. Because I'm just looking at those vacant lots, and I'm not sorry we don't have another car wash per se, but I'm like, hey, the car wash hasn't shown up. Not that I'm worried about the car wash. It'd be nice to see some other things, and we do have some nice things up there, and I see people going up to work, but, okay, well.
All right, and then last but not least is the debt service. This shows the capital interest that we received is 1.6 at the end of our fiscal year 2023. We generated $46,000 in property tax revenue, but we had the capitalized interest to pay those capitalized interest payments of $242 and $470. So at the end of 2024, our fiscal year 24, we have a $986,000 in the bank. This is separate from the bond proceeds that we're using for the capital project. This is what's sitting in the bank to pay debt service. All right, so then in 2025 fiscal year, we're going to be generating $152,000 in tax revenue. We have those capitalized interest payments, but again, we have those in the bank, the funds in the bank. So we're going to end 2025 with just under $200,000 of cash in the bank. Based on our current projections for 2025, we are going to generate $409,000 in tax revenue. We have two debt service payments of $1.5 in January and $446 in July. When you take that $199 that we have remaining in 2025, you add the $409, then you subtract out the debt service payments, there's the shortage of $1.3 million for 2026. For 2027, we have nothing to pull from the prior year because we were in the red, so we're starting from zero again. We generate $634,000 in tax revenue based on our new estimates. We have debt service of just under $2 million, so we're short another $1.3 million in 27. In 28, we generate $956,000 in revenue. We have about a $1.9 million in debt service payments, so right now we're projecting being short $1 million. In 2029, again, about the same numbers, $956,000 in revenue, about $1.9 in debt service payments, so we're short $999,000. And this goes on, the debt is all the way through 2041. But hopefully, as the developments get on the digest, then you can see, even though it is a small amount, that we do go from a deficit of 1.3 down to $1 million. So we'll gradually see that deficit will be reduced, but it's a matter of when the developments hit the digest.
Any other questions? The PowerPoint is on our website. Okay. I don't think I have a hard copy. I'm going to print one off. But, so people can access it. I'll get it out there too on my email list.
Yeah, it's under the budget, under finance budget, finance millage rate, and is attached.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Oh, is it? Oh, yes.
What's also on there? Okay. Is that one under finance as well? Okay.
On the agenda.
So people will know when to find them. I mean, where to find them. Okay. If there's no more questions for staff, then we'll go in the public comment time. And based on who's here, I probably don't need to read my public comment statement at regular meetings.
I don't know, that Dave Hadlick, he can get pretty feisty.
I think David's been here enough that he knows it.
Mayor,
Does anyone, yes,
we're supposed to have a public hearing too.
that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, that was that came before the public comments.
Okay.
Oh, public hearing versus public comment.
Yes, okay.
It may look duplicated. The pre-generated agenda, I can remove the public comment.
Just the hearing, I think, will allow for the public comment. So, does anyone want to speak to the millage rate? Going once, going twice? Staff? All right. We'll include public comment with that, because that's what we're here for. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right, now we'll move to the special called council meeting for the budget workshop. I call this meeting to order. Need a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? For any of those listening to this afterwards, that was unanimous. All right, budget review.
Just wanted to say a few words on behalf of leadership before Ms. Holman gets started on her presentation. Just for an overview, department teams began work earlier this spring on their individual budgets. They were submitted to finance and worked with finance as they reviewed the current year request as compared to prior year expenditures. Finance then met with the leadership team in June and July, along with all the departments. City manager worked with both HR and finance to implement the 2023 wage study, which will bring our positions to market and help our retention efforts. City manager's office and finance then met with departments in July, and everyone worked to reduce personnel, operating, or capital needs in order to present a balanced budget for you today. This proposed budget is a collaborative effort to address workforce needs, to include personnel and equipment for safety, proportioned with those quality of life services and amenities that our residents so need. I want to thank the Finance Committee for their time and effort and input on this budget. And I also, on behalf of Jeff, who's unable to make it today, we're both thankful for everyone's efforts towards this objective, and we're really appreciative, again, of the Finance Committee and the finance team's work on this budget.
Sorry y'all had to sit all through that other, through all the presentation. I know it's a lot of hours out of your other work that probably is piling up. Thank you for being here. I know sometimes you don't know who's going to get the questions for their budget. Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Ms. Hallman.
Okay, to start this budget workshop before, we go into the different questions you may have, I thought I would just give a summary PowerPoint presentation just to kind of give you a high-level overview of the 2025 proposed budget. So again, the proposed budget is $56.9 million, with the largest portion being our general fund at 40%, water and sewer at 23%, the East Side TAD at 14%, capital at 8%, debt service at 6%, self-funded insurance at 4%, solid waste 3%, hotel and stormwater is at 1% each, and then the smaller self-sufficient funds make up less than 1% of the total budget. Again, this is just taking all of our budgets for each fund, what the 2024 current amended budget is compared to the 2025 proposed budget. You can see general fund has a 2% increase, Water and sewer, a 10% increase. Stormwater, a 28% increase. And solid waste, 2% increase. Then all the other funds that are self-sufficient, like your federal seizure fund, your state seizure, your East Side TAD, which is the remaining of the bond proceeds, your hotel motel, cemetery, technology, all of your capital project funds that are not SPLOST related, which are your public roads, your grants, and anything that is capital projects that is funded out of the general fund. We move those funds into a capital project fund separately. We have a self-funded insurance fund, and then we have our 2 debt service funds. So overall, you can see the $56.8 million for our proposed budget. The 3 main funds, which is our general fund, had a 2% increase from $22.2 million to $22.8 million. Our water and sewer had a 10% increase of $11.7 million to $12.9 million. And solid waste had a small increase from $1.806 million to $1.846 million. Budget notes for the general fund revenue, just to kind of highlight some of the assumptions or the estimates that we have included. It is assuming that we maintain the millage rate at 5.822. 570,000 increase in building permits, 461,000 increase in sales tax, $201,000 increase in interest, $129,000 increase for transfer from water and sewer fund for admin cost, $47,000 increase in insurance premium tax, a $29,000 increase in recreation fees, $208,000 decrease in intergovernmental grants. That's just because we received a large grant this year for GDOT for the resurfacing of the parking lot right there off 61. That, of course, it was a one-time grant, so we will not be receiving that or budget for that for 2025. Water and sewer revenue, we are proposing a 5% water volume rate increase, as we have been for the past 3 to 4 years. For the average customer that uses 4,000 gallons a month, this is equal to about 90 cents per month on their bill. However, I do want to point out that, as y'all are aware, that there are new agreements with both Douglas and Carroll water authorities. Some of those agreements, or those are in process right now, but they are going to require an additional rate increase once we get those numbers and we know the metrics of how much we're going to use from each entity and how that impacts the budget. But right now, we're just going to continue, because we do not have those numbers yet. We don't want to present or propose anything without having solid numbers before us. The sewer rate increase is needed, but it's not included in this year's budget because our current focus is the water rate adjustments. As we've stated before, there's always a lot more requests than what we can fund with our current resources. All the departments requested.
Sorry.
That's okay. All departments and all funds requested $8.46 million in budget improvement request. We were able to fund $7.12 million, so that left $1.34 million unfunded. Our budget notes for expenditures. There's in the budget, based upon an IGA that we have with Carroll County, that we pay them a pilot payment of $200,000 based on the TAD IGA. We paid them $100,000 this year, and then for 2025 it's $200,000, and it goes up $100,000 every year, up to $500,000 until the bonds are paid off. There's $100,000 in contingency that's in the mayor and council's budget that we place in there every year, just for anything that may come up that we need money for that we can transfer from this contingency fund. If it's not spent, it goes away. It goes into fund balance. $84,649 for a police department special response team. That's the training and equipment for that team. $75,000 for economic development professional services. If that is something that y'all want to continue with Carroll tomorrow, that's the funding for that. $58,000 for various maintenance and repairs at the library. $28,500 for V-Plex, Fullerville, and Gold Dust field lighting maintenance and repair. $18,000 for police department to replace the flooring and continue the electrical repairs. $17,000 to paint the right side of the Avante building.
Thank goodness.
Yes. $100,000 for landscape professional services and tree removal. And then $1.3 million water purchases for Douglas and Carroll. That's an increase of $600,000 compared to this year for the water sewer fund.
Jennifer,
Mm-hmm.
the contingency, did you say that was 10,000 or 100,000?
100,000.
Okay, so can we add another zero to that?
Yeah.
I missed that part, I'm sorry.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, yes, we can. I thought you were meaning, can we make it $1 million? I was like,
Oh, that would be great, but, yeah, if you can add another zero.
Yes, I sure will.
It's got the glare, so I can't see some of the stuff anyway, no matter which way I turn.
Yeah, either the comma or the another zero,
Yes.
but yeah, it'd be great if we could just
Yes.
magically add a zero.
This is going into our personnel. Just wanted to show y'all, see faces to the employees that are out there working hard for the city and the citizens. We asked the departments to submit to us updated photos, and so they're in the budget book, but I wanted to make a collage of them to share with the public as well as with y'all in this presentation. Ain't we pretty? Okay, personnel, 16.
These are new employees? Or just
No.
all employees?
It's all that I could get. Of course, you know, we've got a police officer up there. We couldn't get the entire police department, but we tried to make sure that we included everybody that submitted a picture for us. So, personnel totals 16.2 versus 14.6 million last year, which is a 10% increase. Again, general fund being the largest operating fund makes up 81% of that. Water and sewer is 16%, solid waste is 2%, and stormwater is 1%. The personnel changes or proposed changes in this upcoming budget is adding a part-time code enforcement officer, 2 police officers, 2 street technicians, a grounds equipment operator, an athletic coordinator, an athletic maintenance tech, and a parks programmer. But in doing so, we would be eliminating 2 part-time aides to help fund the parks programmer. The pay adjustments, as we've mentioned before, again, just highlighting that this budget includes a 3% cost of living, a COLA for all employees, $343,000. The implementation of the salary study that was performed last July, I believe, or was completed, $248,000, and then other salary adjustments and position reclassifications of $119,000. As you know, we are self-funded for our healthcare fund up to a certain amount. Then reinsurance, if it has to kick in, it will. You can see that the budget is estimated at 90% of maximum claims. We get that number from our broker of what our maximum claims are. And then historically, we budget around 90% of that, which has done us well in several years. This year, don't know. We are having a high year compared to other years, but that's normal. It usually happens every 3 to 5 years. So the remaining 10%, which is roughly around $200,000, that is savings that remains in the operating funds of the general fund, water and sewer, and solid waste. Our current cash balance is a little over $1.7 million. But the budget for self-funded insurance, $706,000 is at administration fees. 1.7 is estimated claims and wellness expenses. So we have a total budget for the self-funded insurance of $2.4 million. Our capital budget, what we're proposing are various things for various departments. For equipment and vehicles, they total $783,000. The administration side for IT, they requested and we're proposing the access control for customer service, Welcome Center and Avante at $36,000. Customer service is in need of a new truck for a meter tech due to the maintenance on the current truck. It's got a lot of miles on it and it's been having a lot of issues. So we are proposing a new truck for the meter tech. For public safety, this is two of these items y'all actually one of these items you actually gave advance approval for so that they could go ahead and secure those vehicles, which was the first one, the 5 Ford Explorer vehicles and upfitting at $395,000. They are asking, and we're proposing a new Ford Escape for the CID unit at $27,000, 4 handheld emergency radios at $15,000, and 4 Pro Laser speed detection devices at $9,000. For grounds, they requested and we proposed a land provide cutter attachment, 12-foot attachment at $16,000. Community development and building development asked for a new truck for site inspections for $54,000.
I can't be the only one is that the F-150?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the F-150 and going, it's 50-something thousand. When did that happen? I can't be the only one looking at those
Yes.
numbers and we're just shocked by what it cost, and that's a 150.
Yes. A Ford Escape for code enforcement at $32,000 and building maintenance and F-250 with service body at $56,000. Parks and Recreation, $8,000 for wood picnic tables, 2 field dragging machines for $69,000, and Pine Mountain requested and we were proposing 1 utility vehicle at $13,000. For various site improvements around the city, the renovation of the North Avenue Building Chapel, $258,000, the Fellowship Hall at $30,000, and the Horace Luther / Old Library, I believe that's some new offices and some ductwork at $10,000. Powell Park, reno some restrooms, utility closet, and concession stand at $35,000. Add parking lot and bleachers at $10,000. And replace 1 HVAC unit at $6,500. For grounds and the fleet shop, overhead heaters for their shop areas at $7,500. A new HVAC for grounds area and manager's office at $6,500. Gold Dust additional pavilion and seating at $20,000. And Pine Mountain replace water wheel as the water feature for the pond at $10,000 and replace 1 HVAC unit at $8,000 for total site improvements of $402,000. Here are the big dollars. This is the proposed capital for water. We got the new water meters for new builds that we always budget for every year, both the water meter for new builds and the water meters, warranty meters and registers. We also have included the GDOT bypass water line construction and betterment at $2.1 million. The tube settler replacement, $385,000. The engineering and design for the sludge transfer from water plant to river trace force main at $45,000. And a restroom on the first floor of the facility at $12,000 and replace windows at $15,000. So total water capital is $2.8 million. On the sewer side, a vacuum truck at $565,000 in the garage to store that as well as other items for $24,000. Influent crane replacement at $57,000 and a flow meter replacement at $40,000. Hickory Falls lift station $435,000. The North Plant upgrade to 1.5 MGD and pump station at $300,000. And an F-150 truck at $60,000. So the total sewer capital is $1.5 million.
I know we're only talking about $7,000 difference in the 2 F-150s, but why is 153 and 160? I mean, is there equipment included in that? Is it quotes that just happened at different timing of the quotes?
The quotes were provided from Fleet, is that correct?
They were both F-150s a couple slides ago. One was 53, one was 60. I mean,
One was an F-250 with a utility body, the other was an F-150.
We had an F-50 on the other one and this one as an F-50. There's a 250 also.
yeah. There you go. For the meter tech was 53. I mean, I know it's $7,000, but I'm just, curious.
John, would yours need more equipment on it than a meter tech?
I'd have to look at it, what it can.
It's the work body?
Understood.
That's the difference, because that one, the customer service.
Will not need,
Doesn't have a work body.
I don't know what a work body is, but I'm considering it's the body of the vehicle and it has something extra because it goes to work.
Yeah, I think it's going to, I don't know, but I think a work body essentially is like the
Heavier.
like the tools, like the toolboxes and stuff that are built into it, and that has the ability to kind of maybe do some extra like lifting and stuff.
It is shown as an F-150.
I'm sorry, John?
Okay.
So what he's asking is the F-150 for the meter tech at 53,000, and then the F-150 for sewer is 60,000.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I mean, I was just a curiosity. I mean, $7,000 not significant in the grand scheme of things, but
But it's significant
It
when
all
you're
adds
saying just a F-150.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
We'll look at the details and see what we can, see what the difference in the quotes
Okay,
are and let you know.
thank you.
The F-450 with service body, 80,000 for distribution and collection. Stormwater, we put $300,000 for the Sugar Foods culvert replacement, and we always put in another $100,000 for other stormwater improvements that may happen or may be needed throughout the year. So a total of $400,000 for stormwater. So all capital excluding SPLOS, which we'll talk about in just a moment, is $5.9 million, with the majority of that being in your water and sewer fund. Your 2025 SPLOS project, SPLOS projects. For 2021 Carroll SPLOST, that's the funding source for these items, is that total $760,000. It's the North Avenue Gym rubber flooring at $95,000. The Gold Dust, there's several items that convert the tennis courts to 8 outdoor pickleball courts and correct the drainage at $200,000. The new pickleball court lighting at $45,000. A new basketball gym bleachers at $115,000. Rebuild the baseball concession stand at $105,000, and then at Powell Park construct 4 tennis courts for $100,000. Under economic development,
I
there
have
was
a question
Sure.
on that one. I was just curious when I was looking over that last night. I thought with the tennis courts, you just divvy them up. There's got to be a reason it's $200,000 to change them to pickleball. There's a drainage issue too, so it's not just the conversion. But normally, if the lines are on there, you can go out on a tennis court and play pickleball. So somebody needs to explain why turning them into that is $200,000. I mean, I'm sure there's a good reason. I just didn't
Yeah, so the
have it.
average lifespan of a tennis court is 8 years, is that correct, Nick? And so what has happened over time, it is up and down, wavy. You can't even play play tennis on one of the courts right now. It's so up and down and wavy and dangerous. So all that's going to have to be taken out and just totally redone to make it a workable, playable surface.
Okay, so this may be later in the budget, but I'll tell you one thing that'll save us. Oh, wait, I see some notes on other areas because I've only gotten so far. I'll just be honest with you. The notes out to the side and it may be there further in, would be that it's really getting refurbished. It's not just being changed to pickleball. It needs work done on it.
It'll
Okay.
be a total demo out and put a proper base in, and Tracy and Nick know a whole lot more about
No,
this
that's
stuff
okay. I
than
don't need
do.
any more detail. I just need to understand it was
Yeah, it's a-
200,000 and I'm
Yeah.
just to change it to pickleball. It's not about just changing. It's about it needs refurbishing, redone. Okay, got
Correct,
it.
and it'll be a little bigger to get that many courts in, is that correct, Tracy?
Yeah, the tennis court, a pickleball court is about a 40 by 20, and to get 8 in, we'd need to expand that footprint, but we think there's enough space in there to do that.
Okay, all right, thank
Because
you.
there's currently, what, three tennis courts? And you're going to convert them to 8.
Yes.
And I will say, just because in my HOA, we just resurfaced our tennis courts as well, and it's not cheap. And that's without drainage issues.
Thank you.
And then the final thing is under economic development, there's $100,000 for Prospector Park.
Oh. Could ask that later. I'll ask it later, but I looked at what it was going to cost to repair that wall. So, is it now the time to ask, or should we wait till we get in the section? I mean, do y'all have a
It's-
preference? Because I know sometime we'll go section by section. I don't.
It's totally up to you.
Do y'all have a particular way you want to proceed? Section, okay, then I'll just go ahead and ask it now since it's right in front of us. $100,000, is that right? That's the wall that was there. Okay, so we're on the side of Jane's. Am I thinking right? Move that back, let me see.
Yes, ma'am. It was requested and discussed, I believe when the previous city manager was here. He engaged with a local architect to come up with a concept plan for Prospector Park.
For the park?
For the park itself.
Got that.
That is, rebuilding a stage and then kind of adding a little bit of, amenity per se. But you're asking about the wall
Yeah.
adjacent to Jane's?
Yeah.
So right now, we would need to repair that wall with this project. So we are currently getting quotes for, pointing that up, but we share, a portion of that wall. It's our
Right.
responsibility to.
Okay,
make
so
sure
at this
it's
point, we don't
structured.
have a price on that wall.
Not the repair itself. because it's-
Okay, then I was looking at something else and confused it with that.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
Okay, debt service. Of course, we have our Series 2022 bonds, water and sewer. We have a principal payment of almost 1.6, interest payments of 416,000 in March, and then in September we have another 394,000. So our debt service payment on our water and sewer bonds stands at $2.4 million. There's the TAD again. Again, we're still using our capitalized interest for this upcoming fiscal year, $470,000 each, both in January and July. So our total debt service payment is $940,000. Okay, so that's pretty much the overview of the budget. And then if y'all want to, however y'all want to do, look at it page by page or questions, however you want to do it. I'll take my seat and then answer from there if that's okay.
In the past, it seemed to be the most efficient to go section by section. And I'm fine with that on the different departments. I have a lot less questions than I'd usually have because I still have a lot more pages to go through. So how would y'all like to proceed? Because I know we asked a number of questions just on, because the overview hits all the highlights. So sometimes that knocks out a lot of questions right there. What you got, Danny? The first one listed would be the governing body. The contingency only had a question on the zeros. Question on the contingency. Have we been, I'm not looking at the previous budgets. What's the amount we've been putting in there? And do we have an average on how much has not been spent? I know that can be used for professional services and all sorts of things, so.
The past several years, I would say the budget has been 100,000. As far as the use of it, it ranges from year to year, but never has it been $100,000 that's been used. I mean, anywhere from 20 to 40,000, I think, is what's been used in the past.
Okay, and the only reason I'm asking is sometimes if you're looking at departments, if you've got to save somewhere, or you may still have money left to make up for a shortfall somewhere else, I'm going to be looking everywhere for that. So it starts with us.
Right.
And so it's possible, we don't know, but it's possible based on the trend then, that we budgeted more than enough. We never know. I know professional services can really bring it up. But right there might be a place where we could save. So,
And let me make a note too. For I could see that you were giving me the side eye. We also removed any kind of election expense from the clerk's budget, just because there's not one scheduled, but there always something could come up. So I did make a note that if an election did come up, we needed the money that we could pull from contingency. We just didn't want to budget in the clerk's department for an election if we know there's not one scheduled, knowing that we had contingency in the mayor and council's budget to
Okay.
move.
all right, so it's not budgeted, but you could get it from mayor and council.
Yes.
Okay. Because those are the people involved in the elections. Makes sense.
Mayor, that actually reminds me. I remember a few years ago now, Jennifer, that we had $500,000 in the budget for Butterballs, and I know I remember spending some of that, but I mean, and I know I'm asking you to go back 5 years or 3 years, but where, we rolled it over. Where did that money kind of go? I mean, is that? I know we probably did it on some budget amendments and stuff like that, but that money has been spent essentially through budget amendments.
Yes, it's been spent. However, in the 2021 Carol Splost, there is $300,000 that's been set aside of the $1 million for economic development. Last year, or in this current year's budget, 2024, y'all took it was proposed and y'all approved to take $300,000 from that $1 million and set aside for Butterballs. Some money has been spent on that, but not the full $300,000.
And so that, give or take, the $300,000 that's left has been carried over into this budget for whatever we do over there now?
Yes.
Okay.
And there was one design plan, then maybe a change in a design plan. Can we see that we do something about that this year?
Yeah, for sure.
I believe the will has been there. We've budgeted and nothing happens. But the governing body has budgeted, so it's been the will of the mayor and council in general to have something done to that property, other than, remove the skeleton and then have some gravel and weeds growing all in there, right in the center of our downtown. So, and I know we've also got the newer design plan that we were talking about over there at Prospectors Park. So I don't know exactly. I'll look at the funding on that later because I don't recall. So we still have 300,000. I believe we've had that for a little bit too. Seems like even asking Sarah, I'm sure we asked Sarah this question last year.
I think the funds that y'all were talking about that were probably coming out of the general fund, they're depleted. All of that was done with the demolition and everything. This is the 300,000 was approved in the new 2024 budget. So that was the first allocation since the prior allocations that y'all have done.
Any other questions on governing body? Even though we kind of went out of that anyway. City manager section. 3 employees. The Capitol. Let's pick on the city clerk then. Just kidding. Clerk. All right, so they're broken down right after you, here. So, I'm trying to get us back. Go to the tab of General Fund, and then just turn your pages, we'll get section by section. 39 is the governing body, page 39. And then city manager starts on 41. Any questions for city manager? You can tell I don't have all mine tabbed yet. Don't worry, they're coming. They may not be as extensive. You've done a really good overview. Any questions? After that, you go to page 44, city clerk. It's a 23% change. Is that the decrease? There it is. Handling, software, scanning, and the municipal elections. Okay. Any questions for that section by any council members? Page 47, finance. We did some personnel changes, right?
We actually added a new position as part of the reorg, an accounting clerk.
Some of the things we've even changed, like during the year now and then, and we see it maybe in a budget amendment, and it'll only impact a certain amount of months. So I know we always have to take into consideration what it's going to be then when we do it for an entire year.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions for the finance department? You'll let me know, otherwise I'll keep moving, okay? Legal's one of the easiest ones to do. Well, I will say this, while it's the easiest to do in the budget, we don't make your life easy, or y'all's life easy, because I know we're very demanding with our legal services. And especially even during the TAD, it was extensive, and I'm sure we've had a whole bunch of other extra things we've had to add in to handle. Anyone for legal? Okay, and from IT? 4% change.
What's with the overtime? Why are we doing overtime?
One of the employees is non-exempt, so any kind of overtime or any excess hours, then we have to pay overtime. So we changed that amount to based upon what they're spending this year.
And we did a reclassification, or there's a request for a reclassification. Does somebody want to explain the reclassification? Page 52,
Hello.
under
So
notes.
the reclassification for the IT manager, that's for Bernie. He is studying to get his master's degree. So he is progressing in his career and taking on more responsibility. So that is a more suitable title for what he's been doing for us.
Job description is increasing.
Yes.
Sense of what he's handling.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And any other questions?
Well, not only are you said that he was going to complete his master's degree as
He
well?
is currently working on it, yes.
So, but it's not completed yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
HR? Don't move yet.
I won't.
Y'all have to do regular ongoing training too.
Correct.
Every time. Constant changing of the laws having to do with human resources.
Yes, and we try to put in some training for the employees too.
Okay, customer service. These are, in this case, I'm looking at the picture, these are the ladies, I think we only have ladies in there so far, that get the customers that are upset about the bills, right?
They do a tremendous job.
Yeah. Or the garbage
Yes.
pickup didn't get done, even though we contracted out, they're still the ones that have to deal with the company that we contract with to find out, if when there's problems or something's dripping on the road or anything like that, so. 3% change,
And this also includes the 2 meter techs.
that's right. Mhm.
I appreciate these pictures. We get to see the people.
Yes, exactly.
I know, I'm rarely in there. I stop in once in a while, and it's usually to see IT. Most significant related postage. We all know postage is going up, so most of the increase is postage, credit card, processing fee, which I've learned over the years, you cannot charge that to the customer when it involves utilities. Any other questions on that one? Okay, community development, page 60. Look at that good-looking bunch. It is, thanks for it does, because our employees are spread all over the place. Some people, we only see them now and then, and plus we've got several new employees.
Yeah, Amanda definitely pestered the departments to get them to send pictures because it's good to see the faces of you see the numbers all the time, you see the requisitions or the budget amendments, but it's good to see the faces to know that there's people that's
See, this is actually the first year I've seen all the employees.
awesome.
Yeah, and when we have the employee luncheons, we may have a whole lot in there, but they're not in their specific department. So now this one had the reorg, so it's different, but 20% decrease, and I'm asking only because I haven't gotten through all the notes yet.
What you're going to find is that there's this decrease in community development, but then there's a significant increase in building development that used to be building inspections.
Okay.
I do see a GIS database management, but, and I know, and I think Sean has some background in GIS, but what are we doing with GIS? Because there's really nothing available on the website regarding GIS right now. I mean, as far as data or anything like that, is that any of that going to be available on the public side, or is it all just internal use?
We could do it by lottery.
Without Sean here to directly speak to it, I can say generally Esri's contract is substantial.
Right.
And it does include so many user licenses before being made public.
Okay.
That's great, and we use GIS in everything we do.
Okay.
So it's, yeah. a lot of the internal stuff and looking at developments and whatnot, so, yeah.
Okay.
Code compliance in community development, he has to use it all the time, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, because I know, in other communities, obviously, maybe a little bit larger communities where they may hit it up there. I mean, you can go pull up GIS database and you can see zoning, you can see permits, you can see, you can see all kinds of public data. Just click on the polygon parcel and it's all there, so.
There certainly is value in it. I know as we continue to grow our work order system too, there'll be use in stormwater, certainly water and sewers using it as well. Having those online platforms does come with a certain cost and
Right.
fee, and it's something certainly we can explore in the future, but it would be a reoccurring increased cost.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anything else on community development? Okay, building development. That's a big group. Y'all got everybody there. 133% change from 2024. Notes change. Reorganization of community development and building. We moved, you got moved over there too. Is that part of that reorg? Inspectors. Because sometimes one will drop and another one will rise, and it's just because we've moved somebody somewhere. That'll be part of it. So I appreciate the notes. As long as we're going to paint the Avanti building. I know we've got a lot of other things going on. The what was the fellowship hall, I believe, and classrooms, probably Sunday school classrooms from the former Methodist church downtown, the historic church and building. Council, anything here?
So, in the building development, I mean, is this the department also that does like facility maintenance essentially for our city buildings too, right?
So they have their own budget, but they're under the envelope of building development.
Okay.
So we have building inspections, we have building maintenance, we have development officials. So it's a pretty big department. So
Okay, 'cause
it's custodial, the whole 9 yards.
But the facility maintenance would be an employees as well, but they're not listed here on this one. They're going to be shown later.
That'll be shown under Nick's. yes,
Okay.
under building maintenance.
Okay.
Anything else for building development? Okay, we'll go to page 66, code enforcement. Also, the people that probably get a little flack because nobody wants to see code enforcement show up. Doesn't always mean, but a lot of times it means something's not quite right. The only major change in there is changing a part-time to full-time, right?
The addition of a part-time. So it'd be two full-time, two part-time.
Okay, did we take a part-time and turn them into a full-time? We didn't. I thought we had always had somebody that was part-time. Yeah,
So this would be an addition of another part-time.
I see. Are we still working just regular hours, or is everybody waits till Friday and they know they've gone home and that's the time to stick out all the signs and do all the things that you aren't allowed to do during the week? Is everybody still regular Monday to Friday?
I'm gonna be speaking for Nina here, because they're under community development. But I know at certain times that when I was over community development, we'd have them go out on Saturdays and do different things and go in at night checking out lighting and stuff. But I don't know what her reorg's going to be with getting the new part-time or anything.
Can we make a note on that, just to at least discuss it? But you always know when those mattresses are for sale and 50 signs go up or whatever it is. Okay. Turning my mic off because I do remember doing that in my former state and waiting to put my yard sale signs on Friday after 5 o'clock for Saturday. They got too strict on that sort of thing. We're actually fairly relaxed on being able to put those signs. I think maybe there's like a $5 permit, and most people don't even know that exists. You know, so they tend to put them out, but then I don't see them all over the city. Anything code enforcement? Anything else? Other than I know I probably have 4 or 5 to report. We apparently have some issues over in our area of garbage that just goes out for the entire week. Not on the day before, not on the day before the day before, or the day before the day before the day before. And just put it out whenever, and it'll be the garbage can with all the stuff on the side that only gets picked up, bulk pickup, every 2 weeks. So it just stays out there for weeks, but I've had higher we don't have HOA, you know, there's no HOA in there to police all of it, so. Pardon?
Economic development. I think we're on economic development.
Oh, I might have gone too far. I went to tourism. Did I skip somebody? Yep, I did. Okay, 68, economic development. That's all with Carol tomorrow. On Friday, we got a presentation from Brian Dill. And I know there was some concern in past years about whether we were getting our money's worth. We knew that the main focus of Carol Tomorrow had been, I guess, industrial for up here and large expansions. And being that our industrial area is full, we have nothing left except basically out on the front, right? I mean, is there some little tiny thing left in there that maybe is very difficult to develop? We might still have that. I'm not up on that. But it's mainly just out on the front that we have some things going on in the works. So they have pivoted, and maybe I think from some of the comments, getting from Development Authority, and this is important for people to know, because if we're going to spend this money, we need to justify it. We have no economic development department. In January, when I came in as mayor, I gave myself the title informally because I knew we needed to kickstart some things. I was concerned about the downtown. O'Charlie's was gone there. We eventually, we had Uncourt closing. Was it a couple months later, something like that? And I started rebuilding those relationships with the chambers and meeting with people like that and some other developers to talk about what can we do, not only downtown, but these other things that are going on. People that have contacts, have vision. There was a focus on downtown until I started doing the meetings with Carol Tomorrow. And also economic development on the Douglas County side. And that's when I saw the benefit they could really be to us, being that we don't have a department. So I was working with some individuals, somebody that maybe wanted to buy a building downtown and talking to them and trying to, get them to go in the right direction. And now we're Uncorked is not unseen. That's being dealt with. The Publix one, without getting into detail, that one is challenging. And the main reason is Publix has a 5-year lease on it even after they're gone. And so there's some barriers with us getting something else in there that they have to approve and with the kind of money they want for it. O'Charlie's is also in the works. So just know that. And the reason it's in the works primarily right now, other than Uncork started early, is Carol Tomorrow. And I know Councilman Momtahan and he has something being proposed in his ward. We ended up on video meeting with that person or that company, and we found it helpful to us to be able to get the expertise that Carol Tomorrow has that we don't have. That's what they do full time. They know how to look at companies, they can look at the zoning, the size, what they're trying to do, what it will require. So we ran it down to get an opinion. We still know we're going to make the decision, but we just wanted their expert opinion to give us some feedback, and it was helpful. So the fact that we don't have that department, but we can have other people that have a staff of experts that we can use. So I know that sounds like a commercial for it, but that's just because that's how useful I'm finding it to me. Y'all are welcome to have a different opinion on that. I can just say that's how it's helping us so far. You could say, let's give them less, let's give them more, but at this point, it was questioned at one time. Were we getting our money's worth? We plan to put them to work and get our money's worth. Unless somebody, any different? Okay. All right. That one's pretty easy to review. It has a whole lot of blanks in it. Tourism.
Hey, is the tourism manager camera shy? What happened to the picture?
Oh.
He sent me Main Street pictures.
You might have to bring those people in and get the picture yourself.
I do know that Colin, I kept going, how did we get you with all your background out of our recreation department? And it's because she happened to be there at that time, but she had that expertise. It goes a lot of years, because I know Barbara Daniel goes back with her. So we have somebody with a lot of background in there. It's not like we stuck someone in that just got out of college. That's not anything about getting out of college, but has connections around the state. I think they had been over maybe in the McDonough area at one time. But Villa Rica, I always look at us not necessarily be full-time in tourism, but we're looking more at sports tourism as well. Tournaments, recreation department, that's part of it. And of course, events that we put downtown. I think she's also working on, since we don't have a arts coalition, they dissolved several years ago. She is reaching out to some organizations, see if we can get more of that going on downtown like we used to. You know, just like the Lions Club used to have the Taste of Villa Rica, now we do a concert for a fundraiser. The Arts Coalition used to put on an event every spring, and it attracted a lot of people. So they're putting in the work there to try to do what they can on getting us out there around the state and beyond. I think we got a board in Alabama. Yep, there it is, CVV board. That's probably the one in Alabama, I'm not sure. Any questions on tourism? Are we supposed to break? Is this what's? Okay, Main Street will be next. Y'all ready for a lunch break? Okay. Do we have to adjourn? We don't have to really adjourn to take a break, do we? Turn off the audio, whatever. They don't want to hear us eating Chick-fil-A sandwiches. So can you tell this is